Good evening, everybody. It's my pleasure to be the moderator of this forum. Thanks for taking time, on a Sunday evening. This is your personal time, and you came here to spend with us, so that's great. So that shows, how involved you are, in things that are going on in Cupertino, so that's great. I also would like to thank, Better Cupertino team for bringing these forums to the residents. Right? So this is the third one in a series that they've been doing. So it's great. It helps all of us to be informed. I would say, we are lucky to have an advocacy group like Better Cupertino among us. Right? It helps us, all, plugged in and and informed. I also would like to thank, panelists today for volunteering to be here with us. Right? They don't have to do it, but they chose to do it. That shows, their commitment to us. So we really appreciate, give them a round of applause for being here with us. So I'll show you the outline for the meeting today, and then we'll go from there. So we'll have first 7 minutes. We already started late, so to kick off and introductions, and I'll talk about the rules of engagement. Roughly around 32 minutes for me to ask, these three gentlemen some questions that I got from various residents and and friends. And about 18 minutes, so the 32 minutes, the 2 minutes per question, and each of the panelists will have 2 minutes to weigh in on the question, right? So roughly around 4 questions we'll go through. 18 minutes, carved out for developers to come and talk about ongoing projects. So it's great to have developers here to tell us, to talk about their projects that are ongoing in Cupertino. So it will be 3 minutes for the developer to talk about their project, and about 3 minutes for community to ask any questions, pertaining to that particular development. Right? So expecting around 2 to 3 developers to be here. So the invitation went out to all, but I don't think everybody could make it. Obviously, short notice, and probably they have other commitments. This is about 60 minutes carved out for Q&A. This is all time for you, the residents, to ask questions. Anything and everything relating to local city planning, you are free to ask. Right? So the feedback from the earlier forums was that we needed more time for residents to ask questions. That's why we carved out roughly around 50% of the time for that purpose. Each resident, that wants to ask a question will get around, 2 minutes to ask the question. So let's be mindful of, others. So let's try to ask the question within 2 minutes. And 2 minutes for one or more panelists, to respond to that resident's question. Right? So we're expecting roughly around 15 questions. So if you can accommodate more, that's great. And we'll wrap it up at the end. Couple of things, right? So this is your meeting, right? I'm just a facilitator, right? So I'm like a traffic cop, right? So how safe the roads are to drive is, based on the drivers. Cop can only, police things, right? So cannot, guarantee the safety, right? So this is your meeting, so please cooperate, and and how well this meeting goes is in all of our hands, right? So be courteous and cordial, right? So please ask tough questions, but don't indulge in personal attacks. I remember one of the first forums that we had here. One of the panelists got viciously attacked by somebody with inaccurate information, right? So we don't want that, right? Because they're serving, they're volunteering their time, and we shouldn't be attacking them. So please be mindful of that. Without further ado, so I would like to each panel member to introduce themselves, right? And we'll get going. A lot of feedback. Feedback. Is it because 2 mics? Yeah. Okay. Do we need James? This one? Thank you. Does this work? Wonder why there's a feedback. Okay, so why don't we get started? So Stephen, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, my name is Steve Sharp. I got elected to City Council in November 2016. I currently serve on several committees. I attend the ABAG meetings, the Joint Powers Association for Libraries, the Water Commission, and I'm also the alternate for airplane noise, and I have been attending that on a regular basis. When I ran for City Council, the main issues were sensible growth, having a good balance of jobs and housing, and avoiding too much high-density office space. Thank you.
Great. So can you hear me okay? Mm-hmm. All right, great. I'm going to try to keep it to a non-feedback oriented volume. It seems like a nice conversational tone is going to accomplish that. My name is Carson Paul. I'm the current mayor of Cupertino. For those of you who are not aware, and I doubt that it's anyone in this room, the terms for the mayor of Cupertino last 1 year. We're a generosity, which means that every year our council decides to designate a particular person as the mayor. So I'm the mayor this year from the first Tuesday in December of last year until the first Tuesday in December of this year. And I'm very pleased to be able to bring forth, some what I hope is sound thinking and fairness to the general conversation. I first ran in Cupertino in 2009, and it was interesting because back then the big issue was whether to let dogs off leash in certain of our parks. And I hear some laughter around the room, and it might be in remembrance of that. And to the extent that it is, I appreciate the residents who are getting involved. It was actually one of those issues where it should have been, so to speak, my issue in that particular election, since I was on the Parks and Recreation Commission. And I was, the person basically saying, well, we should try to listen to the residents and the residential sentiment as to what the totality of what people are telling us is. And I really haven't changed with respect to wanting to bring that forth. Because my feeling is that if we're going to be engaging in this kind of a system, we might as well do it in good faith. I know that often it's very difficult to do that because there are so many various interests at play. There are a lot of different factors that people have that ultimately are their most basic concerns. What I think we realized sitting on the dais behind here a couple of years, maybe a little less than a couple of years, but what I think we realized is that ultimately our representative power, so to speak, derives from the fact that we are elected by the people that vote and by the residents of our city. And with all respect for the various interests and the participants, I was actually the president of the Chamber of Commerce in 2014 when I got elected here in Cupertino. With all respect to the various interests out there, ultimately we're beholden to residential sentiment. We're beholden to what our constituency wants. And if we're interested in broader representations, then certainly we can run for Congress or run for state assembly, become a senator or somewhere. But I think at the end of it, what we've successfully done is put forward residential sentiment. So to the extent that what we're trying to do is agglomerate power and ultimately cater to people that we perceive to be a little bit more either in the know or in the so-called power structure, then fine. Let's go ahead and support oligarchy or even dictatorships. But to the extent that we're trying to support a system where we value input, where we value the idea that we want to come together as a community and try to think about the various factors, then let's engage in democracy. That's always been my position. And so I see people here with signs that talk about why they want housing. And I want to tell you that I too want housing. And I think at the end of the day, the thing that we have to be most cognizant of is the idea that we want to make sure that we know what conversation we're having at any given point in time. I've always been as open as possible because ultimately I don't really have any, like the rest of the council, any monetary stake in doing. I'm just trying to approach the issues from the perspective of representing the people that will be here, you know, in this position, and also trying to be very clear-minded about the various factors that are affecting us. And so ultimately, you know, if you say, you know, we need to have this and this and this, then that's totally fine. But I think that we need to be very clear about what conversation we're having and what interests we're representing for the piece, you know, when we make these decisions. And to the extent that, you know, you can honestly take a look at yourself internally and go, well, yes, there are certain factors that do drive me, and they don't necessarily, you know, align transparently. But I think that, you know, you should try to be honest about it. So thanks very much. Some people are pointing out. And so thanks very much for coming out. Very much looking forward to extending this conversation.
Don? Thank you.
First place, I just want to introduce myself. My name is
I'm not sure your microphone is on.
Yeah.
There's a little switch on the inside.
Hello?
Yeah, my name is hello.
We're going to call it.
My name is Damsa. I'm on the planning commission for 7 years. And this is my last year as a planning commissioner. In the past 7 years, I always think the people give me the trust. I need to serve. I'm not a go here.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Thanks, James and Paul. Okay, so a couple of things, right? So ideally, we would like to have, you know, women on the dais, right? So we don't have enough, you know, elected women. So, you know, last week was, you know, Women's Day, International Women's Day. So we try hard, you know, to get, you know, elected women to be here to participate in this event. We did that, you know, in the first couple of events, but today we are three gentlemen. So we want more women to run. So please, you know, kind of keep that in mind. Okay. Okay, so I'm good. Tom, ready? Yeah.
Let me finish one sentence, okay? I graduated with college in urban planning, and that's in China. After graduating, I started to do the urban planning in China for 3 major cities, Beijing, Shanghai, and Tianjin. If people know China a little bit, that's the biggest 3 cities in China. And after I came to this country, I went to University of Pennsylvania, studying regional science, so also it's related to urban planning. That's my background, something related to today's topic. But after I started my planning commissioner position, I gradually changed my mind. Any professional training, if without public involvement, without your opinion, that's nonsense. That's the basics of my philosophy. So it's every planning commission I attended, most time I will try my best to visit on site and listen to both parties and keep open-minded. I share one story with you at the opening remark. It's the first day when I walk into the planning commissioner meeting, and this is the design review. Only 2 planning commissioners can attend. So it's before that I review everything already. And then when I walk in, I talk to the chair. I said, okay, I know how I can vote. But when I get into the room, and the meeting canceled because I share my vision already. That's the first time. So since then, I know we cannot prejudge any particular project, and everything is we need to listen both sides. When I attending to today's meeting, most people may not know my position, but some people know my position. So people say, hey, both sides you want to please with. But actually, I have no agenda in particular interest group or any developer or cities or even the residents. I just want to make an independent judgment. Vote. Every vote for my concern. That's why it's that coming here to share my opinion with everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Okay, so let's get get going with the here 4 questions that I have for you gentlemen. So 3 of them, I've used some survey data, right? The survey data comes from surveys that are conducted by Cupertino as well as in our own city. Right? So the survey data leads up to the question, and then you get an opportunity to answer the question. Right? So, and we can carry on with the discussion after that. So Cupertino commissioned a survey recently, like last 2 months, and you'll see that roughly around 2,500 residents participated and responded. There are about 5 questions. This was the first question that was asked. Right? What would you like to see in Valparaiso? Right? So, and you'll see almost near 0 for office space. Right? So, if you look at the breakdown, there's about 1.2% people that said we'd like to see that as an office part. Right? So. This is, I want to make sure I didn't take the thing twice. Okay. This is Cupertino City conducts a community survey every 2 years, and you see the data. So this is a question as to, what's the top of mind for you, right? So what's that, that's bothering you, or what are you thinking about in terms of, what's the top issue for you? You'll see how various things, move over time. And the green bar, particularly the one that says traffic, shot up between 2014 to 2017, right? So, and the number 2 concern is around growth control, right? So those are the 2 top issues. This is from the survey that's conducted by city. Let's move very slow. Okay, using the wrong arrow. So resident survey shows very little uptake for more office space. Apple just built massive 2.8 million square foot of office space that's not fully occupied, and we haven't seen the impact yet. Any more office space aggravates housing imbalance that we right now. My understanding is Cupertino is in a perfect place in terms of housing to office balance, even with Apple 2 campus. And the city survey shows traffic as the number 1 concern and growth control as the number 2 concern. So given all this, the question is should you approve any more office space in Cupertino? Okay. You're all in the position of authority to either approve or recommend what projects get approved in our city. So I would like you to weigh in on do we need any more office space in Cupertino? Steve, you want to go first?
Sure. So sometimes the media will say, hey, look, Cupertino's adding 13,000 new jobs at the Apple II campus. Well, they may say that technically it's not true. If you remember what was at the Apple II campus before Apple, it was Hewlett-Packard, which had a peak load of 9,800 workers. And when Steve Jobs sat in this room maybe 5 or 6 years ago and talked about the new Apple II float spaceship, he mentioned, hey, we're spread all over town. We need to bring people together into less scattered buildings. So we really haven't added many jobs yet to Cupertino because it's people moving from old obsolete office buildings to new office buildings. But what we don't know yet is once Apple fully populates the new Apple campus, what will happen to all those existing office buildings that they may be moving out of. I think we really need to look at that, wait until Apple moves into the new buildings and see what our inventory of office space is. Because those would be additional jobs once those buildings are occupied. And we would have to look at maintaining our jobs to housing ratio if those new older buildings were reoccupied with new tenants. So right now I would say we should not be building any more office space. We should wait until we see what happens with the old buildings that Apple will eventually vacate and then decide where to go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Don?
Yeah, I think basically we concern the office building, retail, housing, everything element when we do the planning on the zoning. I personally think when we're talking about the office office particularly, there's no absolutely line for us or for myself to consider either absolutely no or absolutely yes. So I think it's always based on the particular project. If they have a small office they try to build, it speaks to the Cupertino business. Of course, I think it's probably so we can approve it. And I don't think it's one single element like an iPhone's project going to affect my personal decision for the office building. So I don't think I think 8 people is my position is absolutely not. I think most likely it's case by case. If there's a suitable office and something related to Cupertino economy, I'm probably going to lean to vote for yes. That's my basic position. I don't think it's we can wait for one particular project and then coming out, because it's every commercial investment, they have their own concern. They probably think about it, the Cupertino residents or Cupertino is good for their business, and maybe it can generate some jobs for our young generation who residents in Cupertino. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Rasi?
Yeah, so, the balance between office and housing is extremely important, primarily because if you overbuild on office and you don't have enough housing, you're going to end up creating congestion problems. People can't live where they work, and so what ends up happening is that they have to drive to where they work and where they live. And so ultimately, it's very important to keep balance. So, where I come from this, as an original position, without getting into specifics on any particular plan. Oh, and I want to thank Tom Pike from Congressman Rohan's office for being with us today. But anyway, I think it's important to keep that balance. We have to make sure that we're not being punished for being good actors. And that's always my only point, in pointing out the fact that there is, such a thing as balance between those types of usages. Unfortunately, in the aftermath of these types of observations, some people have been starting to say, well, let's make it a more regional balance, But, the fact is, our region is divided into jurisdictions, and if particular cities have been doing a good job of keeping that balance between office and housing, then they shouldn't ultimately be punished, because these ratios have an effect. If you see a jurisdiction with an extremely high jobs to housing ratio, then you are absolutely certain to see lots of congestion radiating in and out of that particular jurisdiction in the morning and in the evening, respectively. So, this is where I would come down on this. If I agree with Don, you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. I also agree with Stephen that, you have to make sure that you balance. And if you take a particular snapshot in time, you should go with that. I do think we have economic concerns. And so, more than anything else, I'd like to see not just a balance between the housing units that you deliver in conjunction with any office, if you consider any. I would like to see some additional housing units built on top of any proposal that is trying to justify particular office units. But I would say that office does tend to in the right type of situation help your economic base, especially for your schools. We have Fremont Union High School District here. We have Cupertino Union School District. And the way the tax allocations are designed, Fremont Union tends to benefit more because of their tying to the property tax base. However, for the Apple campus, all of those property tax dollars are ending up in Santa Clara Unified. So, if you're looking at drawing jurisdictional boundaries in such a way that actually benefits our particular schools jurisdictionally, it might make sense from a dollars and cents perspective to look at particular areas. But I think at this point, because we're so cognizant of the balance, we should try to make sure that the housing units we deliver, at the very least, offset the office units. And then, of course, this is the fact. There's the fact that we're a veteran community, we're a suburban community, and we have to be cognizant of the fact that a lot of people don't want massive amounts of density. So that's just generally where I come out on that.
Thank you, Darcy. So to sum it up, right? So Cupertino is in a perfect place in terms of housing and this balance, and we would like to maintain that moving forward. And we don't want bad actors, the neighboring cities, that are not adhering to those balance, being rewarded and us getting punished, for lack of a better word. We want that. We want every city, to adhere to the balance, and we are doing a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, I mean, we've done well. There's no reason to be subjected to like temporary finger pointing. I mean, if the jurisdiction has made huge amounts of housing units recently, but at the same time, just slightly more recently has increased their office by even huger amounts, relatively speaking. Then they shouldn't really be pointing at us and going, well, you're so averse to like this kind of thing. You're all these. I mean, I think that's a little bit unfair, to say the least.
Okay.
But I mean, we've been balanced. We should still be balanced moving forward.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next question, right? So this is again data from Better Cupertino's community survey. There's a second question, on their survey that says, what percentage of retail in the future project should be? Right? Even though the question was Valco specific, but I'm kind of using the data in a more general sense. So if you look at roughly around 60% of the respondents want more than 50% retail, right? So that's the highlight from this particular survey response. And if you look at city community survey, right, or 2018 to 2017, look at the black line that shows satisfaction with the shopping environment, right? How satisfied you are as a Cupertino resident, with the shopping situation in the city, right? 2012, that it reached the peak. Almost 50% of the respondents were pretty happy. And look at where it is now, right? So it's pretty close to 12%, right? People are pretty unhappy. If you add up the green line and as well as the red one, it's more than 42%. That are saying they're very unhappy, right? So given that 60% of residents are asking for more than 50% shopping at the Valco side, and Cupertino city survey data shows residents are disappointed with the shopping situation in the city. The question is, do you believe there is enough retail experience in Cupertino, and how do you fix it? Okay. Don, do you want to go first?
Yeah. I frequently fly to China because my business there. Every time, so I stay there maybe one week, 10 days. I never shop because in China you can order online everything and they deliver to your house within 24 hours. And I think the trend is similar here. It's most times 80-90% items I bought is always online. I use entrepreneur membership. So it's although I acknowledge there is a survey in our particular area, Cupertino, we do like retail shopping. But I personally think internet shopping will be the trend for the future. Within 10 years, you can see the switchback report. Within 10 years, most malls will be disappeared. It's the 25% to 30% will be disappeared. So it's we facing the challenge of how we adjust our mentality, shopping mentality, and the shopping habit to the new future. I personally think it's go to physical shop, more to shop is good things. But if we can just change the shopping, dining with entertainment all get together, that's probably the future. I personally cannot draw the exactly what kind of picture at the community center. I think it's certain percent retail, certain percent other function combined together. Maybe it's one solution for all people can accept it. It's retail. It's whether it's investment that they want to do it. That's their own decision. And investor, especially retailer, if they can survive, they'll invest. If they couldn't survive 10 years, within 10 years, 5 years, it's foreseen not their future, not their money return. It may not return. It doesn't depend on whether we like retail or not like it retail. I personally think it's probably within 5 to 10 years we'll see the future. It's most purely retail mall will be declined. I think probably we need to push this consider.
asking for pure retail mall. I think, the rest of them are, okay with a mix, but, 60% want, more than 50%, retail, right? So it's kind of not all or nothing.
Yeah, of course, I know it's the people like a retail space, but I run retail business myself, used to be. So we have to carry the rent, we have to carry all different costs. When we compete with the internet, it's really almost impossible to get success. You can see the trend. It's all the retail, the physical malls, they're going to decline, that's for sure. If I make a responsible decision for the cities, probably the things that we can have some certain percent of retail and easy for them to sustain and combined with the entertainment. I see most of the Chinese mall, they decline after decline, they put a lot of activities, entertainment for kids, for high school kids, and for the community gathering. That's the make the mall revitalized. That's what my observation.
Okay, thank you. So if you can keep, answers to 2 minutes, that would be great, right? So Darcy, do you want to go next?
Oh, sure. Yeah, this kind of reminds me, when I was in 8th grade, one of my teachers said something like, we're not going to have salad bars in 5 years because there's too many germs. And, it's funny because what ended up happening was that people ended up extending out the Steve's bar area, right? I mean, so basically the glass that protected the food was, so I mean, I think it's analogous here because ultimately, I don't really see retail going away. People want to go out, walk around, and have that kind of interactive shopping experience. Valley Fair is very healthy. The shopping mall in Palo Alto is very successful. The Gilroy outlets aren't going anywhere. And when I moved into the area, roughly a little more than 10 years ago, Valpo was kind of on par with the Great Mall in what you just. And so you can kind of see how their respective fortunes have, diverged, so to speak. I think we need to do what's right for, Cupertino, and in terms of delivering a quality type of retail experience. I think we can do it. I've already spoken at the State of the City with regard to what I'd like to see retail-wise inside of this particular space. I'm gonna try to steer away from too many specifics as to the Valpo site because we are in the process of a specific plan of community outreach. But I think that it is fair to say that retail is an important element of our experience. These types of spaces are very interactive. They speak to the heart of commercial activity, and certainly if things were just purely residential and office, it wouldn't be as effective and interactive as space. I would like to see in any kind of significant development that we are considering a fairly corresponding significant amount of retail. As to the percentage, I wouldn't tie it to a required percentage, frankly. I think it's yeah. Well, thank you. I wouldn't tie it to a particular percentage. What I would do is try to get a sense of what a particular proposal is delivering and see where else it makes sense. In terms of the economics of it as well as the various impacts that it would potentially have.
Thank you. Stephen?
So I'm reminded of companies like Webvan and I guess it was Pet Food Express. They were just sure that everybody wanted to order everything online and get it delivered to their house. Webvan was driving around empty trucks to try to show people that people were ordering from Webvan when they really weren't. The bottom line was people actually like to go out and go shopping. If you look around the Bay Area, virtually every mall where the owners have tried to fully lease it is leased. If you look at Canfran and San Bruno, it was completely dead. They totally revitalized it. Even up over in Hayward, my favorite example, because I think it's 99.2% leased. And that's not a wealthy community. They have 5 anchor stores in that mall. So I think the narrative that all malls are dead, if you actually read the literature, it will say most all malls are doing quite well, especially in areas that have high disposable incomes. Now, there's malls in areas in Pennsylvania where there's very high unemployment and there's no disposable income. And yes, those are not doing well. It's the wrong narrative to claim that based on one mall not doing well, that all malls will fail. Now, like Darcy, I don't want to give a specific percentage of retail I would like to see at any site, whether it's the Oaks or Valco. But I would say we want real retail. I think we have enough chain restaurants in Cupertino now, and we're seeing a lot of failures of those restaurants. And I recall one person saying, well, restaurants are the new retail. And I hope that's not true. If I want to buy shoes, I don't want to have to drive all the way over to the Great Mall to buy a pair of shoes. We would like some real retail in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the third question. So this is again some data. So the Cupertino City Community Survey, you have seen this slide before, right? So the significant concern for residents is traffic, right? So you've seen that. And this is a question from Cupertino City as well as, what's the quality of life, satisfaction level, with respect to quality of life, right? So you'll see from 2008 to 2017, right, it took a nosedive, right? So from 70%, down to, like 40% or something like that, right? In terms of, very satisfied people, right? And the people that are somewhat satisfied or not dissatisfied are going up. And the third question in Better Cupertino survey, where 2,500 residents participated, right? You'll see people don't want, high density development, right? So they want to cap, the height at 60 feet, right? So more than 61% said, they want to see things between 45 to 60 feet tall maximum. So given this context, right, do you agree that traffic in Cupertino is a mess, for lack of a better word, right? And if you agree, how can we afford any high-density development without traffic mitigation? That's the biggest, white elephant here that needs to be addressed, because traffic, you're seeing the survey results and, the drop in quality of life results, right? Traffic being a big concern. So how do we address this? Stephen?
Sure. Last week I was at, it was this week, I was at a VTA meeting, and they were going over some of the transit plans for the future, and I noticed that the fare recovery has now dropped. It was 10%, which was the worst, not only in the U.S. but in the world, and now it's hovering around 9%. And they consider 15 passenger loads to be an adequate number of passengers for a bus. So if somebody asked, is that 15 passengers per stop? They said, no, it's 15 passengers per entire run of the bus, say from Deanza College all the way down to where the 23 ends. I'm not sure it goes past downtown San Jose. So clearly, buses are not going to solve this transit issue. We're either going to have actual mass transit, which is extremely expensive, or we're going to have to work on the demand side and do something about the amount of traffic going in and out of the city. There's no easy answer here. Finding money to do real mass transit is very difficult. I read that a mile of BTA light rail costs $50 million. And they were all talking about bicycles, and I said, wow, $50 million, we could buy about 25,000 electric bicycles and pass them out to people. And that might have more effect on getting cars off the road, because they said it's not, you don't have to get everyone on transit, you've got to get the number of cars down by maybe 10 or 15%, and it would unlock all the gridlock. I wish there was an easy answer. Transit is really not only, transit's the answer to the housing problem as well as to the traffic problem, because there is so much space for housing in areas with no transit, and the jobs are in the areas with insufficient housing. And maybe we could have some kind of credits for cities that, okay, someone had an idea, for cities with really terrible job to housing ratio, they can buy almost like the carbon offset credits from cities that have room for housing, because commercial office space is more profitable than building housing. And that's why cities build it instead of building housing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's it.
Yeah, so I generally agree that we've been a bit underserved in the West Valley with regard to the transit dollars, and it is pretty expensive to come up with a real mass transit solution. Well, we should. We need to be connected to downtown San Jose where the real mass transit solutions are coming in. We need our north and south connectors. Our bus lines aren't really getting us to Caltrain, up north in Sunnyvale very effectively in an efficient manner. And so, I would be behind any kind of very effective mass transit solution. Steve mentioned $50 million per mile for light rail, and light rail might not even be your solution that will really speak to large-scale needs. Because the idea is, well, build it, and then perhaps we can build around it. I think the better idea is to look at where our needs are right now and think about what we can be implementing. And I feel comfortable talking about this now because it's not actually on anyone's agenda. I mean, if we were able to, go under the solution where they say it's not $50 million a mile, it's actually $1 billion a mile to go underground and make really effective mass transit, connecting us perhaps under Stevens Street, under San Carlos to downtown San Jose. I think we should really be looking into it and thinking about something that would actually get us, instead of 90 minutes into downtown San Jose at 6 p.m. on a Wednesday, something more along the lines of 5 to 10 minutes. If you could actually do that and find a more efficient, effective way to deliver that kind of solution once you start, then I think you're really talking about something that speaks to the potential, and not the potential, it really speaks to the delivery capability of this area. But it just catches the infrastructure up with what we've been effectively doing in other areas. So I would be all for mass transit and kind of connecting to the idea of local control. I don't think that you necessarily tie the loss of your ability to provide entitlements to the presence of particular mass transit sites. I think you really need to incentivize both, but not with a required stick. I think compulsion is something that's very antithetical to our sensibilities.
Thank you. Don? It's quite easy to say we support the mass transit, and that's the other people's tax dollars, not ours. And I personally fundamentally think that whenever they have a challenge coming, or people feel pain, there's some kind of solution going to come up. So we are in the Silicon Valley. I think there's a lot of genius here. Rounders maybe in this room, they probably can share some solution even for the transportation. We all know there's a shared economy. It's Uber, those kind of things. The only thing is that I concern is not talking about $1 billion. The only thing is that within our reach, what kind of solution we can collectively to make some effort to solve the immediate transportation problems. Sometimes even within Cupertino areas, anything that we can do something like subsidize some encouraging incentive to as people to share some of the local transportation. I think it's 90% of our transportation is local. It's to the school, to the workplace, and the shopping. There's many things we can coming up. So for the transportation, I'm not the expert. I think it's for the mass transportation, the effort, that's the regional consideration. For the particular Cupertino residents, we want to have more sense of local community getting involved. That's something important. Anything is innovative we can do, we should do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. So, last question. So, this is tied to a new California law that's coming, that's in the process of getting approved. It's called SB 827. So, this is just, what you see on the slides is my opinion, right? It's the attack on single-family homes, right? And takes away land use decisions from city control and allows for 85 feet tall buildings along train and bus routes. So, remember bus routes, that's very important, right? Given what Stephen mentioned about the fare recovery and the occupancy levels, and significant negative impact to quality of life in suburban communities, right? So that's what I think of, and I in fact wrote to City Council as well as elected body to oppose this law. And add to that, cities around the globe have some sort of a protection for local housing, right? You take Singapore or take Vietnam or Vancouver or Paris, they all have some kind of a protection to encourage local ownership of the housing. Unfortunately, housing here is up for grabs by the highest bidder from anywhere in the world, right? That's the reality. So homes are getting out of reach for local residents as they become foreign investment assets. That's what is going on in Valley, right? So that's what's happening, and there is a law that's coming, and then there is a new technology change that's taking place. If you look at the 90s and 2000, internet changed things for better for consumers, right? So we do a lot of things through internet today. Blockchain is the new technology that's taking hold, that's going to be the new internet-like technology. What it will enable is there are a lot of startups that are coming up that allows for fractional ownership of housing or any property from anywhere in the world. Like somebody from Nigeria and somebody from Uganda, somebody from Afghanistan, they all can pool money together and buy a property here through this technology companies, right? That's happening, right? So it's not mainstay yet, but it's coming. Given all of this, right, a law that permits of zoning of properties along the bus routes and train routes, and then exposure to the fractional ownership from anywhere in the world, should we set objective standards for developments in Cupertino, right? So especially to preserve the quality of life and protect local housing stock. We want people that live here own the houses and call it home, not some investor from somewhere else in the world owning up the house and our residents paying rent, right? So the question to this panel is, should we set objective standards in Cupertino where these things are controlled? Darcy, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple of bottlenecks, and I can't really speak to, whether blockchain and, the new security technologies, but, a lot of API and the very thin app layer are going to fundamentally change the nature of investment. I mean, but I think, we can say that it is good to have local control to the extent that, like a jurisdiction that's been completely irresponsible, then yes, perhaps some of that should be guided a bit. But I mean, the fact is we haven't been completely irresponsible, nor have we been anywhere near that level here. I think one thing that's particularly galling in our recent conversations, in the larger political atmosphere, is that people point to our jurisdiction and say, well, you guys haven't made any approvals that have resulted in units of housing. But the fact is, we have made approvals, and we've made approvals in good faith. We had 600 units added to the Hamptons. We had 200 units over at Marina. We had 200 units at the Oaks. And these weren't the typical kinds of gamesmanship like, measures that you've seen, in the last decade or so, where people, where jurisdictions would make approvals that they didn't expect to actually, transpire. So, the fact is, those developments are probably, in the very near future, going to be made. It's not our ability to pull permits on behalf of the developers. But what we can do, if we know that that's important, is to say, well, you need to pull, by a particular date. But I mean, to kind of punish us with a statute after the fact is just, not particularly helpful. And I think it skews the incentives into various areas that just really make no sense. So, I think ultimately we do need to be a bit more cognizant of the need for housing overall. And I'm not really hearing anything from our residential base about, essentially saying, we're just absolutely, and diametrically opposed to that.
in the lobby against SB 827. I personally think this is a statewide senator bill, and it's coming out with some background. Statewide is a housing crisis. So in general, I agree with that bill. I know it's not popular in this room, but I personally think if we all put our interest thinking in the long run, we need to think a larger picture, not only in our backyard. My child is growing in this city, but they cannot come back anymore. That's the thinking for our residents here. If you want to bring young generation, take them at home here, probably we need some solution to solve the problem, especially the housing problem. Not only for the affordable housing, but all the different housing elements. Affordable housing, senior housing, even middle income housing. There's a variety of housing we can have a layer of the income to build a house, not only for particular interest group whose voice is larger who build that kind of house. That's basically my thinking. For the SB 827, there is some technical problem too. I saw it, but I think let's be working with the local authority. We can solve some technical problem. And whether there's objective standards, I do have no answer for that one. Okay, thank you.
So today I attended a meeting regarding 827 in San Francisco. It was kind of amazing because you had everyone opposed to it. The tenants activists and the people that live in single-family homes. Everybody thought it was a bad idea, and with good reason. I mean, even the Sierra Club, which generally comes out in favor of high-density housing as opposed to it, the people in San Francisco are saying that it will increase gentrification, which is true. Now, I know the author rushed out an amendment to try to address that issue, and there'll be more amendments and more amendments, but it's just a flawed bill. It's an environmental disaster. It has no provision for any affordable housing in it. And what we need is not just more housing. We need more affordable housing. We need housing for the developmentally disabled. You don't build affordable housing by building luxury housing. If you look all over the world, it never works. You look at Manhattan, in Hong Kong, you build more high-cost housing, it doesn't bring down the cost of housing. You hear that narrative from people that don't understand how things work, and it's sad, but our duty is to educate them, and 827 is not the answer. I would also point out what Darcy said. Cupertino had a RENA allocation of, I believe, 1,002 units. We approved either 1,400 or 1,600, but none has been built. But we can't force someone to pull permits. What we need is some expiration date. Once you get your allocation, say, hey, you got 2 years from when you get your allocation to pull permits. After that, it's going to go to someone else because we can't just wait forever for you to build this housing. Thank you.
So we move to the next section. So thank you, gentlemen. So let's see. So we have some developers here. I'd like to invite them to come and talk about their projects. So, John Vidovich. Yeah, you can come up.
Can you hear me? Does this work? Or?
So we have 3 minutes for John to talk about his development, and there are 3 minutes for audience to ask any questions specific to the project.
My name is John Vidovich. I'm a long-time resident. I'm in Cupertino, but I was born in Fremont and Mary. My father was born there in 86. manage apricot and cherry orchards in the community, and I grew up presenting that environment. I built a few buildings in this community. One of the buildings I built in Cupertino, which was built about 30 years ago, and we have a project next door where the Goodyear is to build a hotel, a lot fancier than the one that's there right now. We have still some agricultural heritage. We have a winery on Monbello Road, right across the bridge. And if you haven't been there, there's wine tasting there. So that's it for what I want to say. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Yes, do you have plans to do some kind of housing for the elderly and the poor? Do you have any ideas that the waiting list, I've been on the waiting list for 8 years,
We have
and I
Chateau.
can't wait any longer, I couldn't come home
We
before it fulfilled.
we built a project called Chateau Cupertino, right over there. It's 170 units, and we also, a portion of it is affordable. And that project serves meals for the people and has basic housekeeping services. And the rents there, I believe, are cheaper than apartments. And you get meals.
Okay, there's different levels of affordability. I don't qualify for affordable housing. I don't qualify for senior housing. I don't qualify for rural market. I only qualify for a project-based income where my rent is $300 a month for my social security. So I'm on the lowest low of the low. You know, these places that feed you, take care of you, I don't qualify for any of that. I just need a place to live, function, to contribute to being alive. And I don't qualify for anything. So people like me, 7 years old, disabled, educated, wanting to contribute to society, the way 8 fucking years. And no somebody nobody's getting a place in any near future. They're still working on applications from 2007. So it's a dilemma. What you're doing is for people with money, people who have pensions, people who have inheritance. I'm just a solo woman, independent woman.
Excuse me, I think we will have a session for you, please.
So I just question you, would you be interested in doing something for the poor and the elderly?
John, will you build your project to the existing general plan?
You're talking about the hotel?
Correct.
The hotel is one of the few projects that the council has let go forward for a general plan change. And we've been working on that project for over 8 years.
So you said that originally you want like to change it to the general plan? Then what okay, so the whole country, this is not.
So you don't care about the poor?
Yeah, you should like one up.
Well, your question is difficult.
Otherwise it's difficult.
You can never do enough, really. You can never do enough, but
You say there's no hope. I will become homeless. There's no hope for me. Because
Excuse me, can you come down the conversation? This is not conversation time.
Okay,
So we can leave this question
so
to the
we can have
Q&A.
the questions to the council and others pertaining to hotel projects. So thank you, John.
thank you very much.
it's easy to walk away and turn your cheek. Here's what it is. I'm talking about people's lives.
Next one, so we have from Opticos, Daniel Palak. Okay, so you want to comment? Slide starts right here.
and start the slideshow. You can pull the page.
Well, good evening. I do have to start by saying and clarifying that I am not a local developer. That's a really, really important message. My company, Optical, is designed, has been hired by the city of Cupertino to lead the Velco special area specific plan process that we initiated just a little over 2.5 months ago now. I actually recognize a lot of faces from the kickoff meeting that we had, I think 4 weeks ago now. I think it's going to be really hard to read this slide. I'm happy to answer questions, but we are about two months into the process. We have sort of about 100 hours of various forms of public engagement under our belts and many, many more hours to come. I just wanted to take the opportunity, and I actually wanted to thank Cupertino for offering to invite me to the event and to give me the opportunity to invite you all to participate in our process, because that's the only way that our process can be successful. So I wanted to invite you to our next meeting, which is this Tuesday from 6 o'clock to 8:30 in this room right here. And in that meeting on Tuesday, we're going to be introducing some of the background findings from our large team has produced. And more importantly, we're actually going to be introducing a set of guiding principles. This is actually, it's a really important step because it's the first time in this process where we're actually doing what we call a feedback loop. We're taking the 100 pages of content that we've gotten from the interviews and the workshop last time, and we've taken a professional pass at translating those into a set of guiding principles. And so on Tuesday, we'll be summarizing those. We'll be doing live polling at the event, sort of related to those principles. What did we get right? What do you not like about what we're proposing? What did we miss? And then we're also going to break up into stations and give you the opportunity to speak to us about those specific draft guiding principles as well. So I just want to invite you to come to that. And then please do mark your calendars for April 9th through 13th, where we are going to be setting up a 4.5-day design workshop in the former council chambers to work with you all to translate those guiding principles into a series of alternative proposals for the Velco site. So thank you for the invitation, and please do come and participate in the process. Thank you, Dan. Yes, if you go to envisionvelco.com, or sorry. What's that? No, so we were hired by the city of Cupertino. So we have been hired by the city. We have not been hired by the developer to create this specific plan to work with the community to do that.
So what's the objective? What's the objective?
So at the end of the process, there will be a new specific plan created for the Velco project area that will establish program parameters, the vision for the community, and a set of development standards to ensure a predictable implementation.
So I'm just curious, kind of the goal is to actually work with the fundraiser, like for example, architecture plan, or you actually general guidelines? So let's let the question, you can ask questions.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so we are running 10 minutes behind schedule, so we'll get into the next phase, which is another Q&A. So those of you that want to ask questions, you can line up and come to the front of the mic, and you can raise your questions. So I request that you identify yourself, who you are, where you are from, city, and ask your questions, and stay within 2 minutes.
Hello, my name is Richard Mellinger. Is this thing on?
Maybe it needs to be turned on.
Marvelous. My name is Richard Mellinger. I'm a resident of the city of Sunnyvale for the past 7 years. Mayor Paul, Council Member Sharp, I am your neighbor. And I regret to say Cupertino has been a bad neighbor to the city of Sunnyvale. Better Cupertino has been a bad neighbor. Councilmember Sharp and Mayor Paul, you have been bad neighbors. You claim to have a perfect balance, but Cupertino has added thousands of new jobs at the new Apple campus and virtually no new housing. That housing demand has spilled over into the city of Sunnyvale and other neighboring cities to catastrophic effect. Sir, you have said that we do not have a housing crisis, that the situation is not dire. I know working class people who have been forced to share a 2-bedroom apartment amongst 3 families. I know a mother and daughter forced to share a bedroom because their rent was raised $400 a month. You complain of traffic. Traffic on Matilda is apocalyptic because people are commuting to and from Cupertino to work at Apple because no one can afford to live in Cupertino, not even the wealthy, well-paid software engineers like me. Sir, if you want to alleviate traffic, you need to build housing near Cupertino. Mayor Paul, you speak of democratic government. I assume you, as a responsible representative, are aware of the words of Edmund Burke. Your representative owes you not his industry only, but his judgment. And he betrays you instead of serving you if he sacrifices it to your opinion. So, Mayor Paul, Councilmember Sharp, Better Cupertino, my question is simple. How can you continue to oppose and delay the badly needed housing at Valco, at a dead mall? How can you abdicate your judgment so baldly? How can you justify being such a bad neighbor? Thank you.
My understanding is that there are 2 minutes for the question.
Yeah.
And 2 minutes for the response.
I do actually know that.
No, let's not have, heated anger rhetoric here. Richard, I want to thank you for coming forward and posing the question. I think it's a fair question. I want to go ahead and say that, with respect to the characterization of what I was delivering in my State of the City speech, what I was saying is that with regard to our balance in Cupertino between housing and jobs historically, and this is a relatively recent history, we've been balanced. And so if you look at our jobs to housing ratio, and I appreciate the fact that you may be an Apple engineer that lives in Sunnyvale and has to contend with,
I'm not Apple for the record.
or some kind of employee of a Cupertino company. You said you're a software engineer, but even if you're not, even if you
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So just to finish with my answer, I agree that we do need more housing. And, at the end of it, I think it was unfortunate that my remarks were interpreted in such a way that it was trying to apply it to the entirety of not just the region, but the entire state's, housing needs. And in fact, if you were to take my remarks and look at the balance that we were looking at prospectively, because the fact of the matter is, what Councilmember Sharp was saying was correct. There were jobs there previously at the time that Steve Jobs came in and said that he was going to, convert that land over to a new Apple campus. And the AVAT and MTC numbers bears that out in terms of their assumptions. So I think that we do need more housing. I think at the end of it, if you look at the particular numbers, it's very straightforward math to look at what I was saying needs to happen in order to correct the projected imbalance that we're going to end up having. Whether you think that imbalance exists now, and there are some numbers that say that they do exist in Cupertino, or you think that imbalance is going to happen in 22 years. So, what I would say is that stay tuned, and again, with regard to a particular project, particularly the Alba project, I want everyone to keep an open mind, and that's on both sides. What I was attempting to do was to say, look, at the end of the day, I have particular preferences. I want to be very open and straightforward about what mine are, just personally, but I'm going to keep an open mind. I know that I'm a representative ultimately. And
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm going to make one small adjustment. So I see line getting longer. So could we shorten the question to 1 minute and we'll keep the response to 2 minutes? Right? Please.
But I mean, if you, as moderator, could just give an allowance for this particular question. I mean, I think, you know, it's one that's on a lot of people's minds, and ultimately, you know, in order to meet the entirety of the demand, I think we have to, you know, hold every jurisdiction ultimately accountable. And so to the extent that a jurisdiction is being relatively responsible, encourage it to keep on being responsible, but also, you know, take a fair-minded look at other jurisdictions and go, okay, so what can we be doing to encourage them to do the same thing? I think ultimately that's going to result in a far better overall and overarching solution than basically scapegoating a particular relatively smaller jurisdiction and saying that this is all I need.
Thank you.
Oh, since I was addressed as well, I'll be short, I would just invite people to go online and look at the number of jobs that have been added by Apple in the past several years. And I just have to say, the idea that thousands of jobs are being added in Cupertino is untrue. And they added 4,000 jobs from 2016 to 17 in the entire country, and most of them were at Apple stores. It is true that jobs are moving from existing Apple buildings to the new Apple building, and no one can dispute that, and we don't know what's going to go in at the older buildings that they will eventually let go. And maybe then a bunch more jobs will go in there, but just please, if you want to know the facts, go online and look at the number of jobs that were added.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay.
Hi, I'm Jan Stokely. I'm here on behalf of dozens of Cupertino parents of those with developmental disabilities who are looking for affordable housing for their young people. And my question really relates to the housing element. You talked about the jobs, housing, and balance, but the city also has a housing element with a quantitative goal for very low income and extremely low income housing. And you are so far behind in meeting that goal, and yet that has many very low income and extremely low income people who are living in very desperate situations, like our elder who spoke tonight. So what concrete leadership steps will you take with the few remaining affordable housing opportunity sites that have been identified in the housing element to ensure that housing is created for extremely low income and very low income people?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to address? Yeah.
So I've met with this group several times, and the existing ABAG reallocation that we have allocated does allow for a 15% density bonus for below market rate housing. But what was pointed out is absolutely true, and it's not just in Cupertino, it's in the whole Bay Area. We have been very deficient in any housing for the very low income. The below market rate has not been for that group. And that needs to change with future housing allocations.
That's changed now.
You want to add anything, Kristen?
Yeah, we have approved a certain number, and you know, like I said before, with regard to our region allocations, we've approved in projects that are realistic to expect. So the real question here, from what I see, is the extremely low income, because the very low income is covered by our municipal code. There was something called the Palmer requirement. It arose from litigation down in Los Angeles, and it basically made inclusionary zoning in rental units not happen in California for a good long period of time. And then that was corrected at the end of last year in the state legislation, and that was really good legislation, frankly. And so with regard to the low income and the very low income, that's tied in our municipal code to new developments that have residences. And so that covers low and very low. So the question, that's the other half of the question, has to do with what's colloquially known as extremely low income. And so, you know, I think it's very important to look at this sector. Currently, I don't know of any municipal codes out there, so to speak, not just in our jurisdiction or in other jurisdictions, that deal with what they call ELI. But I would certainly be open to considering it, and I think that it is an opportunity right now, especially when you're looking at the addition of housing stock, to start thinking about what you can be doing it's a sector of the community that has extreme needs, and I'd be open to looking at legislative fixes.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Clark. I'm a housing advocate. I actually just got back from an affordable housing nonprofit who built affordable housing conference out in California, where everyone is really worried about budget cuts and funding sources, and also a lot of their staff are in crisis. They're middle-income people who cannot afford to live in the communities where they're trying to build housing, and there are a lot of young people who are in crisis. You talked about how your children are not going to be able to live in this community, are not going to be able to come back to a place that has a thriving economy. And there are jobs and opportunity here that my generation feels fundamentally locked out of. I see homeownership as fundamentally out of reach for me and many people. You talk about how homeownership is something to be aimed for, and I don't see it as a possibility for me, especially not in a place like Cupertino, where the average home value is now $2.2 million. And I'm wondering, what do you think that you owe my generation?
So, did you say where you're from? Okay.
From the Bay Area.
Bay Area, okay. Thanks.
Where are you from?
What city? I think that it's
Okay, thank you. Thank you, that's fine.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an instinct of mutuality. Follow the rules.
Yeah. We would like to know where you're from, so generally. Right, so.
I'm from the Bay Area, where we all see the
That's enough. No one's required. She doesn't know where she lives in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
It's not required. But,
Do you want to address that?
yeah, first of all,
Can you show your ID every time I
No.
speak? Is ID Cupertino
that's
listed?
enough.
Yeah.
I have to say, when I graduated from college, I couldn't live where my parents lived either. And I didn't go to a council meeting there and tell someone that they owed me being able to buy a house in that area. I knew I didn't make enough money to do it. And when I worked in Cupertino in 1982, I couldn't live here because I didn't make enough money. I lived in an apartment in Redwood City, and I saved up, and I bought a place in Campbell eventually because no one owed me a house in Cupertino. It was too expensive. And I would love to live maybe in Hillsborough or Atherton, but I can't go to their council meetings and demand that they give me a house. We really do need to address the affordable housing crisis in Cupertino. You don't address the affordable housing crisis by building $7,000 a month rental apartments. And that's what we're seeing. If you want affordable housing, you need to build affordable housing. You have to finance it somehow. You have to buy the land. You have to find a builder to build it, and you have to control the rent or the sales price. That's just the way it is. And my kids will not be able to live in Cupertino when they graduate from college because they will not be able to afford it. One is living in Oakland now, and because it's what she can afford. She volunteers with the AmeriCorps, and that's what she can afford. And
Thank you, Steve.
that's the way it is.
Okay.
My name is Janet Van Zoren. I'm a 42-year resident of Cupertino. It's on. I want to thank you for your comments. As with one of the previous speakers, I'm here to represent people who live in this community, in particular who live in Cupertino and who have developmental disabilities and who cannot afford housing here. I understand the comments that you've made and that have been made from the audience, but I'd also like to say that one of the things that we talk about here is is the quality of life. And we pride ourselves on our diversity, our cultural diversity. And I think we should also pride ourselves on economic and age diversity and also cognitive ability diversity, which means serving those people who need extremely affordable housing and live in this community. They can't live by themselves. They need the support system of the families that they grew up with. And they also want some independence. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
As to their parents.
So, thank you again for the comment, and like your colleague previously, I want to say that I do support that type of housing for the extremely low income and those with developmental disabilities. And I know that other jurisdictions have been delivering units. I think Cupertino should also step up and deliver those units as well. So, from the economic perspective, we need to look at what is feasible. But certainly, I don't think we should be making trade-offs between, very low income and moderate, because we can get more moderate than very low. And even similarly, it is true though, we would have to make certain trade-offs between extremely low income and very low income or moderate, right? So for every unit of extremely low income, just practically speaking, you are giving up, some greater units of very low income or moderate. But I think it's a community balance. I agree with you from a public policy perspective as well. It's good to keep good socioeconomic. And I think that does speak to the overall sentiment of the community. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
My name is Phyllis Dipstein. I live in Cupertino. I was coming here with one point, but now quickly I want to have two. I want to weigh in a little bit on the affordable housing. I think we definitely need below market housing, at least on two levels, for the teachers and the firemen, etc., who live here, and for the service people who come to drive in here from Berryessa, the people who clean our houses, who work as cashiers, etc. As far as the young EVs are concerned, I agree. Let them live where they can afford, and when they save the money, they can afford to buy a house here. But what I would like to ask you, particularly Steve made the comment, and maybe even Don, the elephant in the room when we speak of growth is water. In this arid zone, how can we provide water for more businesses and more people, balance the ones who leave with the ones who come in? But how can we have more growth when we don't have the water?
Okay, since I serve on the Water Commission, the short answer is you'll have to use less water. Because this has been brought up almost at every meeting of the Santa Clara Valley Water District, is even in a non-drought year, if we continue with this rate of growth, we are going to have significant cuts in water usage by individual residents. At least 10%. They cannot continue the way it is at the level of growth. They cannot build dams and reservoirs fast enough to accommodate the current level of water use. And so the answer is you'll have to use less water, and you'll probably, and if you look at the charts showing how much we're going to be charging for water, and this is not the retailer, this is the wholesaler, the price is going to at least double in the next 10 to 15 years. That will be passed on to all of us, and the retailer adds on their own charges for the delivery. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but it's not.
Well, in other words, you're telling us we have to give up our water. We have to gift our water to people who are already in here.
That's true.
So, one question I'd like to hear from all three of you, and have to do with, oh, I'm sorry. Lisa Warren, 31 plus year resident of Cupertino. Yes, I can live here now because I've owned my home for 31 years. Could I live here now and purchasing a home? No, I could not. Could I ever live where I grew up? No. Okay, so, that being said, my question is, when we speak of housing, since that seems to be folks here, I don't hear quantitative, qualitative comments of what type of housing other than, of course, you want low income, middle income, whatever. I think there needs to be a discussion and hope to get some input from you guys for rent, for sale, types, and a big problem I have with housing in particular is it's never defined as the size. It's a number. 10 housing units of one size is different than 10 housing units of one type and another size. So housing is just this mystical thing that never really gets defined properly. I have a really important question for Coach and Darby and you to ask you. I know that it brought up to you in some of your meetings how get frustrated it is for actual residents of your city to, yes, I know. Are you taking steps in your process or comments to identify those of us who are residents and those who are not? And I would like to make a little hand poll. If you are a full-time resident or business owner in the city of Cupertino, please raise your hand. There's a whole lot of hands on us, and I would like to kind of there you go.
Okay, thank you. So there is no question.
Well, yes, the question
You did have a question. Go ahead.
So it sounded like the question was regarding the distribution of housing. I think that there are advantages to rental in the sense that our municipal code now compels a certain percentage of rental housing units to be very low or low income. So I think the best answer is to provide a mix because owner occupied speaks to some real advantages in terms of making sure that people feel the vested interest in the communities. In terms of the sizes, I agree with you. It's one thing to say that you have X number of units. It's another thing to say, well, these X number of units are an average of this size. So, it's good to get that clarification, and thanks for bringing that to the open. So, I mean, generally speaking, yeah, it's not as informative. So, I would encourage people going forward to talk about what the average size of housing units are, so that we can get some clarification as to how much space there is.
Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, there was some discussion before about rental versus for sale housing. And it's good to know why some people favor one over the other. There's one issue that affects Cupertino a lot, and that's parcel taxes. The way things are now, if I build a 100-unit condominium complex with 100 for sale units, I will collect 100 parcel taxes. If that same building is rental units, I will collect one parcel tax. And some cities and jurisdictions have fixed this, like going to a per square foot model, and some have not. It is not fixed for Cupertino, either for the library, for Fremont Union, or Cupertino Union School District. Actually, it may be fixed for the library, I'm not sure. But I think that's key, is to understand why some people favor for sale versus rental, and that's one of the big reasons.
Thank you.
My name is Peggy Griffin. I live in Cupertino. I have 1 minute and then ask 2 quick questions. One, will you put on the city council agenda an item to put expiration dates on approved housing if that has not been built? And if so, when? That's the first question. The second question is, can you explain why the city is doing a Valco EIR before the specific plan has been finalized? Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to take this question?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, I think it's a good idea to go ahead and kind of look into the legalities and requirements of your first question, Peggy. And I would be in favor of that. In terms of the timing of EIRs and specific plans, I think that might be a really good question for Dan if he wants to speak to that. But my understanding of it is that the timing is such that when you're considering a specific plan, you can set forth with an EIR that basically defines a maximum envelope of what you potentially could be looking at. And from my understanding, the EIR that's being studied isn't speaking to what would be set forth necessarily, but what would be maximally set forth potentially. So that's you know.
I'm not sure. So the question is, where we do the EAR when without having a specific plan, because the specific plan is still being, worked by articles, isn't it?
Right. Well, I mean, we have an envelope of what we could be looking at. Right? We have a maximum amount of space usages in various areas. So for instance, and I don't want to really speak too specifically to this particular project, but I mean, I think everyone that's been following knows that we had 2 million square feet of as an allocation that set forth at the end of 2014 that basically said, well, you applicants can come forward with a specific plan that has a maximum of that amount of office, and then we would consider it, and you essentially have a permission to set forth that as a specific plan proposal. So I mean that's what we're left with from previous, and so that's the maximum that's being studied under the
So the EAR being studied is, whatever was there on Measure D, the maximum envelope that's being studied as an EAR.
Not Measure D, what was in the general plan.
Plan, okay.
Right, from October 2014, you could not study EIR that went beyond what's in the general plan. So hopefully that's what we're starting with. So the first question, I would love that time limit. I think when those RENA allocations were granted, everybody, I wasn't on the council then, I think everybody thought that as soon as those allocations were granted, everyone was going to rush out and build that housing right away. I don't think anyone thought that that would not happen. But in the future, hopefully we can look at setting some expiration dates.
Okay, thank you. So, go next.
Hi, my name is Andrew. I'm actually from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm a resident of San Jose, California. I'm one of the new engineers at the station. I moved out here to work there. I just have 2 messages for the room, basically. The first message is I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania during the 80s and 90s after the steel industry collapsed. I've seen million-dollar mansions with imported Italian marble sell for low hundreds of thousands of dollars. Trust me, you don't want to be on the losing end of that economic equation. The other thing is, Senate Bill 827 is a backlash from the renters, which are a growing population in this state, against the local restrictions to affordable housing. That backlash is only going to continue to grow as renters grow in the resident population. Right? So if you don't do something now to combat the housing crisis, you're going to end up losing control from outside of your jurisdiction. Right? So you have to address this issue. I'll leave it at that.
I agree with what you're saying. It's important for us to be consistently responsible in terms of delivering to our local needs and looking at the general, market needs as well. So, and I will say also that, places like Situate, I'm from Kansas City originally. So, I think it's critically important to look in other areas of the country as well and say, we do have economically depressed areas. I mean, what can we be doing, from the valley, from a very successful economic area, to help to, revive, other areas of the country. I mean, but at the same time,
I'm not asking you to send money to Pittsburgh.
Not at all. I think it's a legitimate conversation to be having. We can, if we think about it and take particular measures that support success as well.
I had like 2 seconds left. I'm sorry. I just want to say I don't want to be on the highway every morning spending an hour plus on a 7-mile commute. I don't. I would live in Cupertino if I could afford it, and I would be a resident at this meeting.
Hi, my name is Dean, and I'm not a resident. I'm from San Jose. But one of my questions, I'm really concerned about small business in Cupertino, because I noticed I used to go to Old Salon to watch a movie at Blue Light Theater. It's closed down. So you guys are trying to open Balco, but it seems to me that you guys, from what I heard about Balco, it's always going to be these really super expensive stores. What are you going to do about those small business, like community store that used community, what do you call it, community business that used to be in Cupertino that people who are just make average income can go to? I can take my question off the air, such like Blue Light Theater. Now I can't watch any Star Trek anymore. I'd just like to know what the answer to that. Community business getting shut down in favor of bigger business at Valco and those chains. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's a great question. Thank you very much. You know, I think this question is very analogous to taking the Palmer fix and telling applicants, look, you know, make sure you deliver our affordable housing units under this law. I think it's similar in the sense that when we look at future retail, we should make a commitment to particular types of usages such as this one. You know, the mom and pop shops are very important. We have to make sure that they are supported economically and that we set aside, you know, particular spaces for those types of usages. And so, you know, I've seen the effects of particular social policy that we make. You know, when you increase the minimum wage, you end up squeezing out mom and pops. You know, as the former president of the chamber, you know, I know this to be true, just directly. I mean, the members would say, you know, you do this, and ultimately we can't. We're not viable. So how do we go ahead and balance that out? You know, I think it's just something that if you don't think about ahead of time, it'll happen. It'll happen economically. So thank you for that question. Also, you know, I would say encourage your, you know, local landowners to be responsive to that particular usage. You know,
to the question, right, without making statements, and can we make the answers no?
Okay.
Quick, thank you.
So, I really don't like all these regressive taxes that have been passed, like the sales taxes. I really do feel that there should be some kind of fee or tax that helps fund both transit and low-income housing, and it should come from the corporations. I mean, because to be honest, the problem originates with thousands and thousands of new tech jobs put into an area with no housing and no transit, which we can't solve just from our existing tax base. Now, I'm sure Mr. Pike will get us a bunch of money from Washington, and Will Connor will be pouring money in for mass transit, but under this administration, I don't see that happening anytime soon. So, personally, I like that idea. I don't know how anyone else feels.
Yeah, no, there was an audience member that talked about a major tax cut, and that's absolutely right. And there's been, you know, verbal commitment, you know, from our major corporate stakeholder here in town. If they can, I want to be careful about this, but if they can be, if they can be a bit more cognizant of the idea that particular usages can be sustained up to a point where, you know, approvals perhaps for redevelopment are made, rather than say, you know, try to paint a picture that, you know, this particular usage is not viable anymore. I think that would really build a lot of goodwill in the community. So it's really a collective effort to make sure that we deliver the type of experience that people want. But it's that particular one, you know, similar to EL and housing, is something that really requires a committed effort. No, I think as a whole we stand behind it.
I think it's important that we realize that not every piece of land in the city is necessarily going to be used for the absolutely most profitable use. And that's why the zoning was established. Maybe retail isn't as profitable as housing, but when a particular property owner bought that property, they knew, hey, this property is owned for retail, that makes it worth this much, that's how much I should pay for it. No one should buy a property thinking, hey, if this is now, but I'm sure I can get that changed to something much more profitable. That's the way we're losing.
Hi, my name is Raman. I am a Cupertino resident. I've been here most of my life. And my biggest concern is that living here, I've seen the winters get colder, summers get hotter, and obviously during these times, there's been legislators, there's been people actively trying to work to fix the environment. But I haven't seen anything happen, and all's one and done, but I'm just wondering, what are we doing now as residents? What can we do to fix it now?
For the environment?
Yes, environmental.
So, yeah, I think there are a number of things that we can be doing. We're looking at, we have a consortium now that we belong to in Cupertino that buys clean energy, for instance. And in addition to SB 827, at our last council meeting on Tuesday, we also considered SB 100, which is, a law that does consider, statewide clean energy targets by a certain year. However, in Cupertino, we're already meeting those targets, right? Because of the fact that we've entered into this consortium of jurisdictions. So I think that it's particularly important to look at the details of these particular laws that are being set forth and see what we can do to really keep on with the efforts and the pressure to make sure that people not only adhere to them but also try to be as efficient as possible in these types of efforts. I think we're all for clean energy and clean vehicles. It's a matter of the details, ultimately. Companies like Tesla are not living in a vacuum. They're also not fully profitable at this point. So we just need to put that collective effort in order to make sure that this 20-year journey we're on to kind of clean up our transit grid for individual automobiles does end up where we think it's going in, say, 10 or 15 years.
I would say as well, we're really into the bike pedestrian plan, and for local trips, that will be key to have these bicycle boulevards and these protected bicycle lanes. So hopefully, not everyone has to drive their child to school individually in their car. I mean, that would be wonderful. My kids' elementary school was 1.5 blocks. We walked. Somebody that lived half a block drove their kid every day. And it would drive me crazy, but I can't tell someone else how to live. I can just try to make it more palatable for them to do the right thing. Thank you.
So first of all, I would like to thank you all the council members and the commissioner for taking the time from a busy family away from the family. So I'm like a Cupertino resident for a few years, and I hope to actually many years down the road live in Cupertino County, right? So unlike many people who speak before me, who doesn't live or doesn't work in Cupertino, I have a stake. I have like a actual interest in Cupertino, right? So I work very hard. It's not cheap to live in Cupertino. We all know that. So we pay expensive taxes. So I hope like the city officials elected, right, the working here, work for the protect the Cupertino residents like benefits, right, for protect their like future, more than anything else, right? So more than anything else, the voice, So first I would like to remind the people, right? So the housing like is not the only thing in the city, right? We have to take a balanced view on the city's growth, right? Here, when people mention about Cupertino, what is on your mind? Maybe Apple, right? Then the possible housing. But nothing else, right? We like all the shopping. Okay, we like all the shopping and the entertainment. I hope to not just have a sleeping pad, matching box, and have a beauty, but I have a real place. Like I can home, I can relax, I can entertain, I can have a place to come, right? That's the city I want to live in. I don't live in sorry.
So what's your question?
So my question is actually, what's you guys strategy, a plan to basically against all the voice happening here to actually protect the Cupertino's future, make sure the living quality of residents have a good living quality.
All right, good question. One thing we're doing right now is first of all, I agree with you, a city is more than just shopping and home. We're doing a lot with the Parks Master Plan to expand the number of parks and to rebuild, say, Memorial Park. Also looking into what we can do for a teen center, a new art center, because a city is more, right, than just streets and schools. it's the quality of life. I think that's the key issue here. I would call myself a Quimby, quality in my backyard, because you have to look at the big picture. And I think that's the key thing here. You can't just say build, 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 build without looking at schools and parks and traffic. And I think that's what we have to educate people on, that they have to look at the big picture. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really want to give all the time to the audience. I'm coming here to learn and study. I know many people in the Cupertino have a much better knowledge than me. Even I stayed here for 7 years on the planning commission. I learn every day from you. The only thing is that I think your question is the first you state you have a personal stake for the Cupertino. Actually, it's everyone in this room, and many not in this room, they also share the same concern, same stake. They also want to have a better Cupertino, better quality of life. It's me too. So it's we do our judgment. It's not based on the particular one person. You have a house here, you have residents here, you have the affordable housing or senior housing. We do the decision based on everyone's concern. Collectively, we're going to share every single element and everything considered. If you elected the city council to sit there, they have a responsibility to share your concern and will as others. Same thing means that I was appointed by the city council. I do the same responsibility. I do every single case judgment based on my concern. Also concerns not only yourself, but also every single resident in the Cupertino. Not only short term, but also long term. In the next 10 years, I really think it's whatever it's 10 years later, when I return, I can say every decision I do is correct. Thank you.
Thank you. I certainly hope so. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just speak to that really quickly. I mean, in terms of quality of life issues, I'm setting forth a couple of items this year as mayor. I want to make sure that people, volunteer more and, think about what they could be doing with their time in terms of, constructive efforts to help the community. And then also with regard to teen mental health, in particular, because our students are under a fair amount of stress. I'd like to make sure that we, address that particular issue as well. And so there are going to be a couple of events throughout the year that address those particular questions. But I think that, more largely, if you're looking at any particular problem, such as housing, such as, what can you do to remain economically viable, it makes a lot more sense to think about what can you do, how can you do more with this, ultimately. Because, if you're looking at something like teen mental health, we're relatively underfunded in our school districts, but we perform really well. So, and at the same time, by certain metrics of stress, we're actually doing better than other jurisdictions. So, how do you really achieve that? How do you do more with less? I think it really does come down, not just on the fashion about it, but it does come down to certain values, right? It's the idea that we want to go ahead and, give up our time, not just because it's a good thing to do, but because we're trying to support, our system and how we go about trying to help people and help them. Our general ideas that we value the most. And then in terms of just trying to be able to, address things like, funding and how do I afford this, question. There are basic issues of compassion here. And I think that if there are other people basically saying, look, we're being priced out here. There's a supply issue. I think we do need to look at, metrics, and we do need to listen to, what other people are saying to us. And, I hear what you're saying. I started a business in Cupertino the year after I ran. And, it was nothing close to being able to afford a home here, even back then in 2010. And, I think it's a balance between being able to, approach it in a manner that is very, cost effective and economical. But it's also, basically, the bottom line that I'm trying to say here is that it's very important to keep an open mind.
Thank you, Dustin. So we have a question for one more, and then I want to be mindful of time. So I want to wrap it up and finish it now. Oh, you're last. So, wow.
let's do quick answers.
Okay.
My name is Vanessa Tafansky, and I'm a 30-year Cupertino resident of Generation California. And I just want to say, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding here. I think that, a lot of young people come and they feel angry, and I understand their anger. It's very frustrating for them. And I was just trying to explain to someone that it takes money to build affordable housing, low-income housing, even micro housing, and that money's got to come from somewhere, and the city doesn't. The city doesn't.
What's your question?
Let's get to the question because
the city doesn't buy land anyhow. They said that the answer was to tax the rich homeowners in Cupertino. And not all the homeowners in Cupertino are rich. A lot of them are really struggling just to pay their mortgage, to save for retirement. They have their millennial kids living at home. Most of us have millennial kids, and so we understand the plight. Anyhow, my question is, all the high tech coming here, when they know there's not enough housing or housing for people to afford, do you think there should be some kind of corporate responsibility act to have corporations contribute more money for low-income housing to cities?
There's been, a verbal commitment from our major corporate stakeholders here in town. Whether you get it from a tax or through discussions, I think it's good. It's good to keep that in the discussion. And, if you put forward some really good, well-presented facts and numbers, I think it's really hard for, your major stakeholders, especially when, they've been kind of putting forth a message of, trying to do what's right for not just the community, but, the entirety of society everywhere, to really look the other way. So, I think that it's a good thought, and it's one that should be followed up with, in multiple ways. And I agree with the endpoint. Just trying to make sure that the corporate players that have the resources do remain cognizant of this problem and do something about it.
So are you guys okay to go on for 10 minutes? Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Victoria Pierce. I don't live in Cupertino right now, but my rent is going to go up this year, so I've been thinking of buying an RV, so I might just move in here, actually. This has been a really great discussion. Thanks so much. Here's my question. So, early on, I've heard a lot of talk about retail. You love retail. Everybody loves retail. It's awesome. I love retail. You all love retail. We get it. An important part about retail is the workers, of course, who work there. So, what are you doing to make the lives of these retail workers better? Because in the earlier presentation, you said, overwhelmingly people want retail headed off the site. And that's cool. You should respect people's will. That's great and all. But the thing you got to think about is the people who work there. They usually get paid minimum wage. They are not paid a livable wage. So what is Cupertino going to do about that? One, what is Cupertino going to do about housing these retail workers for the retail that people so much demand? Because they are inextricably tied together. You got to have both. And second, with so much focus on retail and consumerism, I haven't actually heard any mention about affordable housing much as like one of the priorities. So how much do you have to spend to fill your empty heart and soul with meaning? Thank you.
Empty heart and soul of what?
With meaning.
With meaning, okay.
And compassion for others.
Understood. No, I just misheard the last word. So I thought we said quite a bit about affordable housing, and that we stand behind the politics and trying to make sure that our developers deliver the affordable units. I think at the end of it, that's the first step. And in terms of making sure that people that are paid minimum wage, have the opportunity to be able to live relatively near, that's going to deliver a certain amount of stuff, but it's not going to deliver anywhere near the overall amount of stuff. And frankly, it's probably more along the lines of like 2%. I hate to say that 2% is better than 0%. But 0% is where not just Cupertino, but the entirety of the state has been, in the last decade with respect to trying to pick up these items that can, push the ball forward and move the needle on answering our affordable housing needs. I'm 100% in favor of trying to make sure that we deliver these. And I think step one is to make sure that the fixes that we have are actually, not avoided. Because, a lot of the times what you're seeing is that, for instance, a landowner that really wants to do the profitable thing, okay, and put in just pure amounts of office, for instance, they don't necessarily tell you that they're trying to put an office, right? I mean, and if they're putting in residential, they'll ask you, can we pay a fee instead of delivering affordable units? And so I would say, I think the first step is to get aligned and very clear on what we need to be doing in order to start the solution. Because if you allow them to pay the fee, ultimately there are administrative costs that get poured into trying to make exclusively affordable housing units. So I mean, something like the Palmer fix is critically essential to make sure that we see it through to fruition. I think transit is also extremely important. And to the extent that we make sure that we have reasonable solutions, it's something that is, I think, to a person, we can all agree that the infrastructure for transit in this area is not sufficient. So I mean, those are the two things that I would ask that we allow, just to make sure that the solutions that we've been finding, the 2% that we've been struggling to obtain, through tooth and nail for the last 10 years, doesn't get slipped through the cracks. Because if we keep fighting over things like housing stock, when we're already going to put in the housing stock, then I think we lose the ability to really follow through on the things that are right in front of us.
Thank you, Dustin. Yeah.
Hi, and I'll be brief. I'm 70, I'm disabled, living with my nephews in Cupertino. I have nowhere else to go. I'm scared to death. The landlord's going to sell, and I will become homeless. But I have some information for all three of you. First of all, the city council member. In the 1980s, the corporations, the developers, contractors were angry that they were demanded to give a certain percentage of their building to go towards housing. They changed that rule. City council changed that rule to favor the developers. So there's no one requiring these new developers to incorporate any kind of housing, affordable housing, with their construction sites. Can you do something about that? You don't have to answer me now, but I beg you, I implore you, this needs to be done now. They're just on the milk train, man. They're on the money train. There's 23,000 vouchers for housing in the Santa Clara County. Me, I see a specialist at the senior citizen housing application. She's helping me, and there's a program called
Do you have a question?
Yeah, well, they'll answer when I'm done. It's project-based income is where they take 30% of your income for your rent. And you, what the hell are you doing? You're a planning commissioner. What are you planning for housing? We're so desperate. Answer the questions later, but come on, let's go. I don't want to end up in the garage or on the street. So answer, respond.
I'd like to respond, I'm glad, Stephen, that you have a name. In terms of being able to, coordinate with systems where they have vouchers, that's absolutely something that we should put on the table. The fact is, we have had an affordable housing fund.
They're no longer available. They're dead. You can't get a voucher.
Yeah, and it's something that in Cupertino we have an impact fee, and we have been setting aside, money for, things that are related to affordable housing. And, we do have discretion within that pot of money. It's not Santa Clara County. We have discretion within our city's fund to consider where we put those dollars. And so vouchers, I think, vouchers are something that we could most certainly consider. And with respect to building new housing and having a percentage be affordable. Okay, so now, as of the end of last year, for all units of housing that are delivered, that are new, a certain percentage does need to be affordable.
So the city council changed the rule.
No, our city council always had that rule. The state did not have a fix to, litigation that was brought forth in Los Angeles a number of years ago. As of the end of last year, the state did have a fix. And so what I'm saying is that right now, there are still efforts by developers of new developments to say, can we just give you money instead of deliver portable units in our developments?
Don't allow them.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So please, if you're very passionate about that, please send that message. Stand with us to send that message that, it is better to have that inclusionary zoning.
It's fair, and I'm sorry, I'm very impatient.
No, that's fine.
So I think the other thing that came into effect is the accessory dwelling unit law. So now cities have to allow accessory dwelling units to be built. And we discussed this in Cupertino. Could we do something to help a homeowner build an ADU in exchange for the homeowner agreeing to keep it at below market rent for a certain number of years? We haven't, this just started earlier this year, so there is no, resolution on that yet, but it is certainly something that could be considered. And I think there could be a lot of people putting in ADUs considering the amount of rental you get for it. Yeah, state law.
So that's Cupertino, all our applications.
Yes.
That's
Every state.
Maybe you can take it offline afterwards. Yeah, thank you.
I think we're going to have to make this the last question.
Okay, so
I'm sorry,
we are way over time, so.
Please wait for 27 more. 2 minutes per question. It's only 14 minutes, please.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Jason Warncott, and I'm going to disclose something right off the bat. I live in Sunnyvale, really not very far on the other side of that city limit, so I'm not your constituent, but I'm spending my evening here tonight because we really are in the same community, and the decisions we make on our respective sides of the city limit really look like each other. I have a question for you tonight because I'm having some trouble visualizing the future, and I'm hoping you can help me with that. What I see happening is the kids in our high schools know what's up. Most of them know that there's not going to be a place for them here when they reach adulthood. And it has nothing to do with entitlement or expecting to be handed a house. They're willing to work for it, but they see that the math just doesn't work. I'm a software engineer. I came here in 1999. I was something of a starry-eyed idealist about Silicon Valley, and I'm still really an optimist, but I'm seeing more and more of my colleagues don't share that optimism, and they're deciding that being in Silicon Valley just doesn't make sense anymore. So as I try to visualize the future, what's
the question? It's been a minute.
Well, I thought it was 2 minutes. It became 1 minute.
No.
Okay, here's my question. As I visualize the future, what I see is retirees driving to Macy's every day and being able to do so on nice, uncongested streets because all of their children and grandchildren and people at jobs have finally had the good grace to respect the voters' will and get out of town. Is that your vision also, or do you have a different one?
That's a good question.
Yeah. So can we make a short answer?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think there's a couple of things that could help to fix that problem. We lead with Proposition 90. Proposition 90 lets a homeowner take their assessed value and move to another county. It was a great idea. Okay, you've retired. Why don't you move up to a less crowded county? Everyone will be happy. But all these other counties opted out. I think there's only 5 still participating. So a lot of people that might want to leave are stuck here. They can't leave because they've got nowhere to go. And I think reforming Prop 90, reforming Prop 13 would both be helpful to solving that problem. I know there's an effort to do a split roll on Prop 13, and I think that's a great idea. It will raise money from the people that benefited from Prop 13 that were not the seniors that were about to lose their home due to property taxes, which is how it was sold initially.
So Stephen, let's start the introduction. So I want to be mindful of time. I know some of us have kids and they need to go back home. So all of you, please make 1 minute statement. We register the statement, no responses. Okay?
Okay.
We have way more time.
Sure. So my name's Josh. I don't live in Cupertino yet. I'm actually on the market right now. And I know that short of some major economic downturn, there's nothing that is going to make an acre of land in Cupertino less valuable. It's just a wonderful place to be. It's a very valuable place to have an acre of land, and no matter what you put on it, that land is going to be useful. So, but I also know that in the second half of the 20th century, houses cost about 4 years of an area's median income. And I know that around Cupertino, that's 16 years of everything the household brings in going to purchase a house. So people have asked about how they care about traffic, the environment, and public transit. Stephen, you mentioned public fare box recovery. Doesn't the ideal solution look something a lot like SB 827, making much more intensive use of land near the public transit accessible areas?
Thank you.
Given the statistics, the job growth rate outpaced the new construction by more than 20% in the latest data available from 2016. So when you're going to reject or take away the provisional allocation for office from Sand Hill at the Valco site, because we don't need more job growth. We don't need more office. We don't need these people coming to our city demanding we owe them. Because I didn't go to Palo Alto, Los Altos 50 years ago saying they owe me. I bought Cupertino $11,000. I lived here for 41 years. Nobody owed me anything. These people think they can bully people to get compassion in return. They're out of their mind. I think that they need to take Psychology 101 to learn. Compassion comes from compassion, not from bullying. They're not Yankee Party members. They are bully party members. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephanie. I actually live in Santa Clara, but I've been a fair housing attorney, an anti-discrimination attorney here in the region for about 4 years. A lot of my clients come from Cupertino. They're the people who live on the street in affordable housing. So my real comment is, as a recipient of federal housing funds, Cupertino has an obligation to address and break down what frankly amount to exclusive racist development policies pushed by lots of people in this room who are basically afraid of disabled, poor, black, and brown people, and they don't want them in their suburb. And you're not a suburb. So what I'm doing is I'm really imploring you to look beyond the slogan quality of life and slow growth and recognize what's really going on here.
I'm a Cupertino resident, and I think in Cupertino, a lot of business sites was already zoned to allow housing, and to maximize their profits, these are more and more developers. They prefer building more housing than stores. So do you believe that changing all the business sites to housing is a solution to people, or it may cause new problems actually? And I have another question. We've heard people say by building housing close to work can solve the traffic problem, make traffic better. But according to statistics, only 20% traffic in a person's daily life is from home to work. People need to go outside for shopping, for food, and to pick up their kids and their kids and join all kinds of activities. So what's your opinion on this solution on traffic?
Thank you. I'd like to really reduce my question and see some time for the whole answer. I invite everyone here to look at the California Department of Housing's statewide housing assessment 2025. The problem really is the CA-wide. We're building 80,000 units per year for the last 10 years when we have projected demand of 180,000. I'd like to thank you for your genuine advocacy. I see you're not smug. You're really trying to take things seriously. But how can we say that things are okay in our island when the whole state has this problem? Do we expect these in that same assessment, the state assessed that the growth is probably going to come to the communities with economic disparities and other problems. How can we look at those communities and say, you're the ones that build housing, when we And Palo Alto, the other rich areas do not feel the brunt of the problem. We are also freedom.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tessa Parrish, and I'm a resident of Cupertino for the last 6 years. I have two questions and two statements real quick. The first one is as far as traffic. If it takes me 20 to 25 minutes just to get to Valley Fair, and that doesn't include the parking, if I can say that building Balco retail would cut a lot of the traffic and traffic time commuter. As the previous person just said, most people just want to shop locally. The other question I have is, Balco is zoned regional shopping and not housing. Only Stephen Street is already zoned for housing, not Balco Shopping Center. My other question is there anything that you could do on the local level to control the foreign investors from buying up our land and making it so we and people that are having a housing crisis cannot afford the housing?
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it.
Last one.
The last one.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So thank you, panelists, Stephen, Darcy, and Dawn, for extra time. I really appreciate it. Thanks for all of you coming, and it's a wonderful event. Right? So I could see that we want a lot more time, but we have to keep it within 2 hours. So I appreciate it. Thanks for coming.